Hey everybody, I'm here again to talk about something that goes on in relationships that's not oftentimes discussed, and that's causation. What causes a person to maybe not uphold their end of the bargain of the relationship? Now, once the dirt has been done, we focus on the act that caused the hurt, that caused the pain and strife, but we never really take time to examine a person's why. But that person's why is important. And of course, I'll just use the example, the popular relationship trope that everybody likes to talk about, and that's cheating. If you have a mate, if your mate cheats. I'm going to use an example from this movie called Sex in the City. I haven't seen it, if that helps me save any street cred, but what I do know about the movie is that there's a character who a lady, one of the main lady characters, her husband comes to her and reveals he's had an affair. Now, as far as the husband and wife, they hadn't had sex in 6 months. And throughout that time, he's desperately telling her, "Hey, I need this from you. I need that love, affection, and care." But she has her reasons or what have you as to everything else she got going on. As her explanation is why they're not having sex. Well, ultimately he comes to her and say, I had a moment of weakness. I slept with so and so, and their relationship ultimately ended in divorce. And I know most people are like, right on, he shouldn't have cheated or whatever. But what's never addressed is the causation. What caused that partner to seek outside affection, to seek outside intimacy? Whether we want to believe it or not, when you're in a relationship with somebody, especially a marriage, we're responsible for the environment that we create for our mate. Especially in the context of a Christian marriage, which a lot of us profess to be. In a Christian marriage, there's even instruction that say, the husband body doesn't belong to him, the wife body doesn't belong to her. And you should never withhold from each other unless you mutually agree for a certain time. But once that time is over, you get back at it, or else you allow room for Satan to come in and call sin. That's First Corinthians 7. That's just a summation of what the beginning of that chapter is about. So what it's saying is, for whatever reason that you're not giving your mate, your spouse, that time, that love, that intimacy, you're creating room for sin to creep in. But we'll only focus on the act of the person who, we'll only focus on the person who did the act. You don't have to. We're all adults. We control our own actions, but we can definitely be influenced in our actions. But we never talk about that part. All we focus on, you stepped outside the marriage. Causation. Why? Why did I step outside the marriage or seek elsewhere? So causation is very important. And causation requires a lot of accountability. Now, it's easy to say this relationship failed because of somebody else, but to flip back and say, well, I set that person up for failure through my actions. I'm not giving my husband, my wife, or whatever the necessary attention, time, or whatever is important to them. I'm not giving it to them. And so with causation, that leads them to color outside the margins a bit and seek of the things that I'm not giving them. That is our responsibility. Causation has ruined a lot of relationships and marriages. And like I said, just keeping it relatable to sex. Most people, by and large, I figure, don't get into relationships, especially marriages, with the idea of I'm going to sex. I know we have those unique stories where there are truly some terrible people. But by and large, most people go into marriages with the best of intentions. Life happens. We get busy. We have kids, careers, extracurriculars, what have you. But you can't forget about your mate. You can't stop, giving service or being in service of your mate. And just to go back to the Sex and the City example, you went 6 months. She went 6 months without being intimate with her husband, and he expressed during that time his needs. What is a person supposed to do? I've talked to you about it. I've expressed my desire for it, but you keep the status quo. It's an unrealistic expectation that outside influences won't snag on you. You left room for Satan to come in and create sin, and those are things that have to that need to be talked about just as much as what a person did, the act of that person. Causation matters, the why matters, but that seldom comes up. That's seldom addressed. So now you have a broken marriage, and of course, just using the movie for example, she'll go off and tell her friends he was a terrible man. I can't believe he had an affair, blah, blah, blah. Now, from what I hear from the movie, because again, I haven't seen it, is that sometime later, one of her friends called her out and said, you were dead wrong for that. Now, you would have hoped the friend would have spoke up during the midst of the divorce proceedings or whatever, when she talked about leaving her husband or whatever. But her friend did end up coming and said, you were dead wrong for that. You withheld from that man. And because of that, the causation of that led to him seeking that intimate touch from someone else, or being susceptible of getting that intimate touch from someone else. I'm sure he didn't go in with the mindset, I'm going to cheat on my wife. I'm going to sleep with somebody else. But you left room for Satan to come in and cause sin. And I just use cheating as the example, but there's other things that that has a causation effect. But not only should we focus on the act or the person who did wrong, and of course, if you do wrong, always be accountable for your wrongs. Don't try to flip the script. Always be accountable for your wrongs. But the cause of it needs to be addressed as well. We have to get back to working out our issues and not be so ready to leave, not just shut down from each other. These marriages or whatever are intended to be lifelong things. And oftentimes people expect perfection out of people. But people are complicated. People are layered. People have needs. And if those needs are being met from the source that's supposed to supply that need, causation tells us that it may cause them to seek it elsewhere. So do what you're supposed to do, and hopefully your mate is doing what they're supposed to do, and you don't have these issues. But don't be the cause of somebody's sin. Don't set your mate up for failure.